Is it time for recess yet? I'm so glad you found time to join us here on the Childcare Director's Chair, where Erica Sacoccio shares her best practices that she's refined through her passion of directing childcare centers over the last 23 years. From parenting interaction, systems to save you time, money, and stress, to profitability. She shares it all from the Childcare Director's Chair.
Hey guys, it is Erica with the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you are new to our channel, welcome. If you are one of my loyal daily listeners, I love you so much. I appreciate you. I'm going to continue to tell you I appreciate you because I really appreciate you. So with that being said, I hope that you are enjoying our guest spots. This week we had Latrice, otherwise known as the AKA Childcare Chick. Next week I am recording with the one and only Andrea Dickinson, and I'm going to continue to bring the best of the best onto our show for our amazing listeners. And I know that you all love me and I love you back. And so don't worry, I will not make all of our episodes guest spots. We will reserve those for once a week on Wednesday. Also, if you love video, all of those interviews will also be available on our YouTube channel. Same name, Childcare Director's Chair. If you head on over to YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. It really does help us a lot. I want to say we're at like 898 subscribers. So we're really trying to hit 1,000 mark, hopefully by the end of this month, and you can help us do that. So I hope that you wouldn't mind just hopping on over to YouTube and giving us a little subscribe. Really, me and Derek would appreciate that so much. And I also think that video is really nice, and you can like see who's talking, and it's always nice to see, read body language and facial cues and all of those things. So I feel like it really does help drive home the message. And again, the guests are amazing. So let's talk a little bit about today's episode. So I thought I would do something new called In the News segment. So I thought once a week we would also just talk about what is going on, not in our centers, but outside of our centers, really dig into like what is going on in the field of early childhood education. Right now, things are changing so frequently, and there's so many different things happening. I was able to pull up, let me see if I can do this here. I was able to pull up some articles in the press, and almost every state has some type of headline where it says the government, senators, legislation, lawmakers, all of those are really working on trying to solve this child care crisis, which is amazing. I love that we are having these conversations. But what does that mean if you own a private child care center? So I think it's really important that you stay in tune with what that means. And then also, if you own a nonprofit, what does that mean? There might be additional funding. Not even might. People are really fighting for real, sustainable, long-term investments in childcare, which is great. But I really love the quote that one of the senators said, and I'm sorry, I don't have the article in front of me at the moment, but he had said, it's not daycare, it's not childcare, it's not babysitting, it's education. And you know that, and I know that, but it's so nice to hear other folks started to get on board and say, this is real and this is important. And, we need to be behind this just as we are in the other sectors of education. So that's really nice to hear as a professional, especially for those of us who have made this our life's work. And we went to school to become more professionalized, or we, have staff who went and did their CDA to become more professionalized. And people have been, making this argument, if you will, for the last 50 years, that early childhood education is education, and people are finally starting to get it. So I love it. So here are some of the things. So currently, government initiatives are everywhere, and governments may be implementing policies or programs to address the child care crisis, such as subsidies for child care centers, or increase funding for early childhood education in general. And this could potentially alleviate financial burdens on parents and improve the quality of care if it's done right. And so some businesses have really started to look at this, especially larger businesses, because they're having a hard time. And a lot of employees are saying, I can't really afford childcare or I can't find childcare. So businesses are also getting involved in re-looking at, does it make sense for them to open up on-site childcare for their employees? And I think that that's going to be a trend moving forward for these larger companies who are trying to entice employees to come back. And, on-site childcare is pretty convenient. And if the government or the business is going to invest the money to make sure it's high quality, then that's really a no-brainer for families. If you are a private facility, you may start reaching out to some of the medium sized businesses and say, hey, would you like us to be a provider for your on-site, employees? Maybe if you're a block away or 2 blocks away. I know I have a few larger companies near my locations, and it really might make sense to do that. So that's, just something that is definitely an industry trend that you're going to see more businesses do for those that are trying to entice employees back to the workplace. Now, not every business is trying to do that. And the reason I say that is for some businesses, they have found the work from home model has actually cost them a lot less to operate. And some businesses really love this work from home model. It gives the employees that flexibility, but it also saves the business the bottom line. If they're not having to rent physical space, they're not paying that rent, they're not paying the electric, they're not, there's a lot of things they're not paying for anymore because that's now being done at the employee's home. The employee is now paying for the electric and the gas and the office space, etc. So I think it's just going to really be really larger businesses where they really feel like they really need that employee in-house for whatever reason. Maybe it's the particular type of business that they do. The other thing that is in the news everywhere is the supply and demand issues. There is definitely a shortage of childcare facilities in many areas. And the areas that are saturated with childcare centers still don't have openings. We don't have the childcare desert here in Rhode Island. We have a plethora of centers and they continue to keep opening because the supply and demand is there, and there's more demand. And so people will continue to open centers here. I think the biggest struggle that they're going to have is obviously finding employees to work in those spaces. But even I have seen, and I'm very happy, and maybe it's the time of year, I have seen a huge influx of applicants. Now, this could be because I also run a summer camp program, and many of the college students who, especially those in the ECE field, are flocking to summer jobs. Same thing with teachers who work during the school year. They want to pick up additional revenue during the summer months, because we all know, although everybody likes to say teachers get paid year round, they just distribute it through the 12 months. For those of you who don't get that, they're not really paid for their summers in many cases. It's just that they take less of a pay during the school year and they distribute it out so that they still have a check during the summer. But some people are really, really savvy that work in the schools, and they use the money for summer to pay down credit card debt or just stockpile some money stockpile is probably the wrong word when we're talking to teachers, but add some additional money back into their savings and 401k and all the places that you typically need money to survive. So supply and demand issues that's in the news everywhere. And if you do live in one of the childcare deserts, I'd love to hear from you. I'd actually even love to have you come onto the podcast and be a guest. So if you are running a center or you're a coach for an area that really is struggling with having centers either be open, struggling with centers, struggling with getting enrollment, I'd love to have you on the show if you're in one of those what they call desert areas. The other thing that really they're talking a lot about in the news right now is the impact on parents, because we know the child care crisis, it's significantly impacting families, especially those who rely on child care services to perform their work, or pursue education. And I even think that piece has changed a little bit. I know in our state, folks who were getting the CCAP program or folks who were in the lower income area but weren't working were able to then get child care subsidy while they went to school so they could further their education and then go out into the workforce. Because again, the whole workforce, as we started in the pandemic, relies on early childhood education in one form or another, whether it's a nanny, whether it's a center, whether it's a family child care center, whatever it is, you can't go to work unless your business where you work has on-site childcare. There's no other way around it. And there are limited options and the costs are really, really high. And this forces parents to make those difficult choices, such as either reducing work hours or opting for less desirable childcare arrangements. And we don't want that because as educators, we do care, right? It's not just about money. It's not about how many more centers we can open. It's really not about that for most of us. It really is about caring for our community and the children in our community, which brings us to the quality of care. With increased demand and potential strains on resources, there may be concerns about quality of care provided in private childcare centers. And parents may worry about staff-to-child ratios, safety measures, and educational environments for their children. Research, unfortunately, no matter how much we've tried, research has shown in the last couple years, that the quality of care has slidden a little bit because of the change in educators who have been in the field a really long time and they come in with a lot of expertise and formal education. A lot of those folks have either retired, they have moved into public schools because public schools are having such a hard time. So they're leaving centers and they're going to state-funded pre-Ks and leaving private centers. So there's a lot of factors. And many programs, if you're like me, are starting, I hate to say from the ground up, but really starting to rebuild teams again. I am happy to report that I am seeing, and I think there are quite a few of you who are starting to see a little bit of a shift. And more people are coming into our industry, and so that's a good thing. And maybe it's, again, from these conversations and hearing it in the news about the shortage in childcare, or maybe working parents say, this might be a good option where my child can attend childcare for free or at a reduced cost, and I can also work and make money to support my family. So it could be that is an alternative that families are considering when they're having their conversation about the cost of care or quality of care. And lastly, in the news, we are talking about the long-term effects on children, because we know access to high-quality early childhood education is crucial for children's development. And the crisis may be really hindering the inequalities and really exacerbating it. It's really putting a spotlight on it because families that can't afford it, they're low to middle income. And really, I feel like it's the middle income families that are really struggling. Because if you're low income, you're probably getting some type of subsidy. And if you make a high income, you can afford childcare. So really is our middle income families that are having such a hard time. So we want to make sure that we figure out a way to help balance that out. So as a private childcare provider, maybe it makes sense, and this is a little bit of sarcasm, because of course it makes sense for us to get involved. We should be in the news, right? We just had, the National Day Without Childcare. And so many people were talking on that level. Sorry about that, ambulance. We're talking on that level about the importance of early childhood education. So that's what's in the news today. I hope that you like this episode. If you do, I would appreciate or if you loved any of our episodes, if you could please leave us a review. I have a goal for this month to increase my reviews by 50%. Now that is pretty lofty, except for I think I only have 10 or 12 reviews on Apple. So that means I only need 12 reviews to double that and hit that 50% mark. So I think that's pretty obtainable, seeing that most of our episodes are somewhere between, 100, 150 downloads. So could you help me out? Could you please help me out? If you're enjoying the guests coming on the show, if you like knowing what's going on in the news, a little recap for the week, or if you just want to help a girl out and support EC podcasting. So that's it for today. And remember, it's the small details that make a big difference in the impact of the success of your childcare center. Thank you again for tuning in. As always, have a great day.
Well, all the cute little kiddos have been picked up and it's time to go home. And that'll do it for another episode of the Childcare Director's Chair. Please leave a review so Erica knows the information is helping you to manage and improve your childcare centers. Remember to subscribe to get the latest episode from Erica's Childcare Director's Chair.